Hello everyone and welcome back to Mammoth Interactive's YouTube channel. This is Alexandra from Team Mammoth. In this video, we are going to learn how to send HTTP requests via your terminal or command line with curl, a tool to transfer data from or to a server. Before we jump into this video, go to training.mammothinteractive.com. Here you can sign up for the Mammoth Unlimited membership and get access to all of the courses we've ever created. That's over 2,000 hours of content. So instead of using a website like Postman where you have to make an account or using the developer console on your browser, which can be tedious, we're going to be using curl, which allows you to really quickly and easily send HTTP requests right here from your terminal. So I'm assuming you have a project that you've created and you want to now send HTTP requests from your client to your server or to your API. So here I have my server running with NodeMon, an auto restarting version of Node. My server has started on port 3000 where I have my project. I also have my database running. I'm using a local database that is a Mongo database. So I have my Mongo daemon up and running. That way I can connect to my database when I make my requests. And I'm going to open up a new terminal. In my new terminal, I'm going to put to use curl. So make sure you have curl installed. You should get the message curl, try curl -- help. If you get a message curl not found, that means you have to install curl. You could use npm or another installation tool if you don't have it already installed. All right, now that we have curl, let's go ahead and start making our first HTTP requests. So let's say I want to do the default request, just a GET request. I first call the curl tool, then I'm going to pass in the route that I want to get. So I want to get, let's say, HTTP / localhost at port 3000 / API. So I want to get the route that takes me to my API, hit enter, and I get the message able to visit / API. And this tells me I was able to use curl to make a GET request. Now, a GET request is also the default HTTP request. So whenever you visit this link in your browser, HTTP localhost port 3000 / API, if that's a valid route, then you have able to visit that route. But what if we wanted to perform an HTTP request that was not one of the defaults? So in this video, we're going to cover the typical standard ones, part of RESTful API design. So there is GET, which we just did. We'll also do POST, as well as PUT, PATCH, and DELETE. So let's do a POST request next for when we want to post a new entry to our database. So for that, I'm going to use curl. Then I'm going to use -d to specify that I'm sending some data because I have to send the data about whatever I'm trying to post. I'm going to have two parameters, so I use double quotation marks to enclose them. I'm going to pass in a name, which will be Mammoth, and then use my ampersand for my second parameter for whatever I'm trying to post to my database. My second is going to be a course name, and I will choose web dev. So here I'm sending two properties to create a new entry in my database. Now after this, I've just specified my data here. Next, I have to use -x and specify the type of HTTP request. So the -d is to be just in front of the data. Then the -x should be just in front of the name of the HTTP request. In this case, it's post. The default is GET. And then afterward, you have to pass in the route that is going to accept the post request. And that will be HTTP / localhost 3000 / API / students. Now I'm only able to use this route of HTTP localhost 3000 / API / students because I actually handled that in my project. So my server is handling that route. When I hit enter, I should see the message student added to database. If you did the command incorrectly, or you didn't handle the route, or you don't actually have such a route that is existing, then you'll get an error thrown instead. So make sure that your command with curl here make sure you don't accidentally put localhost port 300 or a different port that your server isn't handling. Make sure you don't put any spaces where they shouldn't be, because you have to be extremely detail-oriented here writing your commands. If you make a mistake, your command will fail. So that was a post request, which means that I was able to add an entry into my database with 2 properties, a name and a course. Next, let's do our next HTTP request, part of RESTful API design. That would be a put request. A put request is typically for updating an entry completely. So updating all of the properties of an entry. For that, we again use curl. We use a -d to specify that what's coming next is the data that we're going to send, and that is the body of the request. I'm going to send a name here. I'm going to send a different name because remember, a put request is for updating an entry completely. So I want to update all of the properties of one of my entries. So I'll change my name here to Alex, and I'll change the course as well to app dev. So here I specified the new data that I want. Next, we have to specify the type of HTTP request. So we use a -x, capital X, to specify that what is coming next is the type of HTTP request, which is a put request. Following that, we need the route. So you'll see a pattern here with our request types. Next up, we need the route, which will be HTTP and :// localhost at my port that my server is running on, then /API/students, and then you have to specifically pass in an ID of the entry that you want to update. So I'll use / followed by one of the IDs of my students. In this case, this is the ID of the Mammoth student with the course web dev that I just created. So you have to make sure that this ID is actually an ID in your database. Also, my server is handling this put request via the ID, so it knows that that string is an actual ID. So if we hit enter, we get a message, student updated completely. And that is how you can perform a put request. Next, let's perform a patch request, the next type of HTTP request. Patch is very similar to put, but it's for updating typically one attribute. So if you're updating a single attribute, you use patch. And so let's go ahead and make a patch request. We're going to use curl. Again, then we pass in some data. This time, we're just going to be updating one property. So that means I don't actually need double quotes this time. I can just put in my property. Let's say we want to change the name. All right, so here we changed the name previously because we had Mammoth, then we changed it to Alex. Let's change it again to interactive. So we're just changing the one property here. Then we specify the type of request. This will be a put request, followed by the route, which will be HTTP localhost at port 3000 /API/students. And again, you have to specify the exact student or entry that you want to update. Typically, you will use the ID or some other kind of identifier or key that is unique to that one entry, because otherwise, if I put in a name as my identifier, well, different students could have multiple names. So typically, the ID is used here. You hit enter, and I get this message, student updated completely. These messages are actually what my project is sending myself. So if you don't see those exact messages, it's because I set those up via my server. So my client will send a request to my server, for example, in this case, to update one property, and then my server will send the response, the student updated completely, if the server is able to indeed do that. And then the API is in between the two to handle the communication between the client and the server. All right, so we did the patch request. We have one more HTTP request, part of RESTful API design. And as you can see, you're starting to see the pattern for the sending of requests. So let's do one more, the delete request. This is when you want to delete an entry in your database. So again, we use curl. This time we actually don't need to specify any properties that we want to update. We don't need to send any data to our server because we're just deleting an entry. So we'll use -x followed by delete as the type of request. Then we need to pass in our route. So we use HTTP / localhost at port 3000 / API / students. And here we need the identifier. So I'll paste in the ID of my student again. So again, we need to identify which student are we actually deleting. We hit enter and we get the message student deleted from database. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to go to training.mammothinteractive.com. Here you can sign up for the Mammoth Unlimited membership, where you can get access to over 350 courses that we've created.